So let's bring in our panel of party commentators now to discuss the decisions made today by Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott. Susan Smith is a Liberal commentator, Tim Powers is a Conservative commentator, and Karl Bélanger, he's an NDP commentator for the most part, eh, Karl? All
sometimes.
Right. That's sometimes. Susan, let me start with you. What stood out for you in the decisions made by, notwithstanding the coordinated announcements happening just half an hour apart, largely the same messaging from both of these former Liberal cabinet ministers. What did you take from what they had to say?
Well, the PR person in me, separate from the political person in me, I thought, they had nearly identical speeches. I thought it was a bit awkward and uncomfortable in a couple scenarios, particularly for Jane Philpott. Jody Wilson-Raybould seemed a little more comfortable. They deliberately wore white to appear to be neutral from an independent perspective, and we're referencing that. No surprise. I guess maybe a little bit of surprise. I thought they might land with the Greens. I think they're keeping their options open. There's some naivete there in the sense that I think they think from the far west reaches of the House of Commons, as former Minister Wilson-Raybould said, they think they can have massive impact on change. And I think their constituents will decide, but the reason the party system has worked in the country, and both of them were slamming the party system in the country, is because Canadians feel that working together, many voices working together, is what can make a difference from a policy perspective. I think independents will be able to have some impact, but nowhere near the level that the two of them are pretending is going to.
What about that, Tim? I mean, like clear in both of their messages was the party system's broken. They've come to learn that after being elected through the party system. They say they've come to learn that it doesn't work, and it's not for them. Have they put their finger on something? Do you think?
I think there's a bit of a mood in the country of looking at different configurations. I don't think the country's thrown out the party system entirely, but we're looking at different things. I look in Eastern Canada now, Atlantic Canada, 3 minority governments, and all of them with configurations you would have never thought would come to pass. In Newfoundland, one that does in fact have 2 independents who are equally well-known regionally. In PEI, you have the Greens on the Ascension. In New Brunswick, you have new parties, the Greens and the People's Alliance there. So I think there's a mood in the country that people are willing to look at different configurations. I think Wilson-Raybould and Philpott are trying to see if they can fit in that thinking of the time and how far that thinking will go. I think they're also living their brand. I think it would have been hard for them to go to a party, regardless of what party it would have been, and maintain the credibility they believe they've achieved right now, standing up against the existing system. But they're rolling the dice. I mean, we all know it's really hard to get elected in Canada as an independent MP.
Well, especially if you've been elected under the party banner. I mean, saw the numbers today since 1945. I think it's 1/4. Yeah. 1/4 of members of Parliament who were elected under a party banner, Karl, then have been re-elected as independents. So this is an uphill fight.
Well, in the past 12 elections, only 7 independent candidates have been elected out of the 3,500 MPs that were elected. So it's not even 1%. It's less than 1%.
So is this a good political move or a career ender?
They are going to end up most likely as a political footnote when we look down the road. What's going to happen to them? I mean, Tim is right. They're trying to protect their political brand, but it's a brand that is probably not sustainable. It's really hard to get elected, and even if you do, what are the lasting impact of what you're going to be able to achieve outside the party system? I mean, we can talk about Paul Hellyer, we can talk about John Nunziata, we can talk about André Arthur, we can talk about all these guys. What's left?
Where are they now?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was interesting. One of the things, I mean, both seem to be talking about something wider than them, and I think that's got to be part of a narrative if it's going to work for them as independents, right? It's like, in effect, I think, Karl, trying to address some of the things you just identified, that, we can affect change, especially if there's a whole lot of us. They seem to be broadening that. Like, if you want to be an independent, forget the party system, forget being told how to vote, forget from...
That's where the challenge comes in. Sorry, Peter, not to interrupt you, but we all know this.
Well, somebody has to.
I know, I usually leave that to Karl, but the benefit of a party system, again, regardless of party, is it provides you electoral infrastructure, volunteers, helps you with money, helps you with advertising, it allows greater exposure. It helps you take a risk that you mightn't normally take. So Wilson-Raybould and Philpott were able to build their brands in part because they were part of parties, and going against a party and establishing a new brand has given them a brand power that other independents wouldn't have. What they have done, though, and we haven't talked about this yet, though, they continue not to help the Liberals. I mean, if they do win as independents, that is more beneficial to the opposition parties than it is the current governing party, because it means there's still 2 seats down.
Well, if only by running. If only by running.
Yeah,
because it means snc-lavalin will be back in the election. I mean, it probably would have been back anyway, but now we have candidates who lived through it and have resigned and are running because of it.
But Susan, there's also the numbers of the, like how this, I want to get to all the nice things they had to say about the Green Party today without joining the party, but they, look at Jody Wilson-Raybould maybe in Vancouver, but Jane Philpott in Markham Stouffville, now running as an independent. The people who supported her now have to make choices, right? Even though the ones who decide not to go there, and that weakens the Liberal chances in that riding. One would think.
In that riding, I think it will make it tougher, definitely, for the Liberals in that riding, because that riding has gone back and forth between Conservative and Liberal. And
she won by, I think, 3,800 votes in the last.
Definitely. And so I think, the one question, I don't know if it got asked in the news conference for each of those new independent candidates, is who do you want to win from a government perspective? Because they hitched their wagon to a platform the last time. And Tim, that's the other thing that a party, as you know, provides for people. Whether you agree with every element of the platform, it gives voters a chance to see what you stand for. And I think as an independent, you're dreaming a little bit in Technicolor if you think a whole mess of independence. Well, the reason you're independent is because you have your own individual thoughts on things. There's no cohesive thing for
she talked today about independent partisans, and I'm not sure everybody knew
whatever.
It.
I mean, whatever. Whatever. What is that? I don't know. But
people, I guess, who are in parties but really want to be independent.
I don't know. I don't know. People who want to say, look at me, I can do it all by myself, but I don't want to be part of that team, I don't want to be that team, but let me make my own team, but I'm still going to be independent. That makes no sense to me. For Jody Wilson-Raybould on the votes in Vancouver, I think that will be a very, very interesting race to watch. I expect that there will be a very strong Liberal candidate that is presented in that one, and I expect the other parties to put very strong candidates there because of the vote splitting exercise. I think Markham Stouffville, does Jane Philpott really want to help the Conservative Party by running as an independent? I guess she doesn't care.
Yeah. Karl, what do you think?
Well, I think if she's running, it's because she hopes she's going to win. And I think she's going to try to build a different kind of electoral coalition, same with Wilson-Raybould, and try to pick voters from all parties, including Conservatives, including Liberals, New Democrats. And the Greens might even help them even more because, there's words that they may not run candidates against them. So we'll see where that ends up. But the reality is that even then, it's a very difficult thing to do because in any given riding, usually the local candidates amount to 5 to 10% of the people's choice within the party. As an independent, it's even harder because you don't have all the infrastructure that we just discussed.
Yeah, the other thing you don't have, Tim, when you come to Ottawa as part of a party system is the party infrastructure in terms of committee presence, in terms of time in the House of Commons, in terms of getting face time with ministers, perhaps for issues for your constituents.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that seemed to me, which was part of the messaging. And there's this hope that somehow at the end of the next election, you look through the House of Commons and there are 25 independents sitting there
I think
now have a certain sense of prestige and power.
But the other way to think about this too, maybe they are running to win. Maybe they're running also to see that the current Prime Minister doesn't win, and they play some role in that, to be cynical for a moment. The other side of that is if they do lose as independents, they can say they preserve their brand, and that will help them in their post-political life. So it makes for a more graceful exit if, in fact, the loss provides an exit for them if they do lose in the next election. So they've created a lot of off-ramps for them, which sort of tells you, actually, for people who are purporting to want to do things differently, they're doing a lot of strategic political thinking. So, and that's not just the exclusive preserve of mainstream parties.
Okay, so let me see what you think. Do they get elected or not? Got a minute left. Do you think we see Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott in the next Parliament?
I think
I
you'll
don't-
get one of the two. I think
Who?
Wilson-Raybould
Yeah.
has a good chance of winning.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. She's got the better shot than Philpott.
I think that race will be the most interesting one to watch.
All right. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.